Jake Dunagan, you lead the Governance Futures Lab at the Institute for the Future, where you're also the research director. First question to you is, what is the Governance Futures Lab?
Yes, the Governance Futures Lab is a new creation that the Institute started about a year ago that is really trying to take on the task of rethinking and redesigning governance broadly. And to do that, we're trying to create structures and toolkits to allow people to reinvent government, reinvent society. So we want to create an army of social inventors to rethink our systems.
And we often talk about institutional innovation. What does that mean?
Institutional innovation, I think, is predicated on the fact that we need to change our institutions, that the institutions we created in the past aren't up to the task of dealing with the challenges we face now on the global scale, and the size and scope of the challenges we face aren't within the purview of institutions as we've designed them. So we need to rethink them, to innovate, to create a new format, a new set of institutions to deal with those challenges.
And is it possible to scale such innovation, such forms of governance from, let's say, a local level to all the way up to a UN level, if you like, an international level?
Yeah, I think it's possible in theory, but I think the challenges are, does a system, for example, a system of voting in a small town, does that make sense for a nation, a globe of nations? So scaling, it depends on what the innovation is. So I think things can scale, but we need to be really critical and careful to say, does that system need to be at that scale? And we need to be honest with the scale we're dealing at. So if it makes sense to scale, yes, it's possible. Do we need to do that? And will it work the same at those different scales and potentially different situations, a different culture, a different historical context?
Do you have good examples of again, innovative forms?
Yeah, I think we've seen participatory budgeting go from a small town in Brazil to dozens of cities around the world, trying to engage citizens more directly in their decision-making processes than just voting for an elected official. We've seen processes that came out of the internet, so we talk about wiki government. So the co-creation of a knowledge base being ported over to the co-creation of constitutions and laws, and so that has scaled differently. It hasn't always been successful, but we've seen that process, at least the format, scale at different levels.
And again, when we talk about innovation, we think about something which is, majority of cases, something positive. But there are certainly negative and risky elements that comes with innovation. What would you say are the biggest ones or the most important ones in this case?
Yeah, I think often new technologies come with a set of assumptions about how the world works and that have power structures embedded in them as well. So we have to be really careful about that our innovations don't just recapitulate old power systems or disenfranchise different groups. The shiny new technology could be oppressive to different people, and we've seen that with surveillance technology on the internet. So we have to be really careful about the power systems that are embedded in these new innovations and try to make them as fair, just, egalitarian as we can ahead of time, to embed those kinds of limitations so that they're not corrupted or co-opted or oppressive.